Is leadership telling you use more AI, but you have no idea where to start? Let me show you. So for me, the easiest way to get started using AI in your day-to-day operations is to just ask AI what it can do for you. What I'm going to show you, I just had the idea to look at my YouTube data and figure out which of the last videos performed good or bad, or if there's any patterns. And I thought, why not make that itself a video where I walk you through how to use AI or how to get started using AI, right? So essentially, one thing, pick a use case that's easy to understand, and something you just do every day, and make sure that if there's no strategy in place, which data can and can't be put into AI tooling, just use something that doesn't have any personal information, any sort of, company secrets or whatever, and just start with a very, let's call it safe use case, right? So this data that I downloaded is just analytics data from the videos. It includes things like views, impressions, CTR, how many subscribers. So this is low stakes, right? Because it's essentially just my own personal data. There's no secrets in here, nothing. And what I did, I just uploaded those 5 zip files and said, here's the analytics. Do you notice any patterns? And before we look at the result, let me show you what I mean with just ask AI what it can do for you, right? So another way to approach this is essentially to just go in, pick a file, any file that's on your computer. Again, pick something that's low stakes, right? So not any, but use your common sense and upload here and say, what can we do with this? So basically, by providing context and by providing a starting point, you don't have to come with a game plan. You can just brainstorm together with AI and ask it, hey, here is something I want to do something with. What do you think we can do together? And it will give you a response, right? It will just tell you, hey, here's what this is. It will look at what it is, and it will help you brainstorm some ideas, what we can get out of it, right? If you use something like Cowork, another tip I can give you is, if your company doesn't provide you any tooling, I know it sucks, but you might have to just buy your own. And don't use things like Copilot, because they generally don't work very well from my experience, because it will give you a bad idea of what AI is capable of if the tooling doesn't work. So I can recommend at least the $100 plan for Anthropic Claude Code, or I don't know, I think the $20 GPT plan, anything that lets you use like the latest and best models without too many restrictions. And the reason for that is, yes, it's possible to use weaker models, cheaper models for certain use cases, but I think the most expensive, or not necessarily the most expensive, the best, smartest model will give you a good idea of what's possible before you then work your way back and you try cheaper versions of the same, and then you see if the result is still good enough, right? So it pays to start smart, and then some tasks, they can be broken down into so many sub-steps that each sub-step can be run by a very dumb model, but that requires a lot of understanding of the process, and that's definitely not where you want to start. So start very smart, might be more expensive, but I think ultimately, hopefully your company gives you access to these tools. And if they don't, I think, it's worth dipping in yourself, even though it sucks. But I think the $20 or $100 for 1 month of trying it out is worth the heads up you're going to get over others. Because if your company doesn't have an AI strategy in place, then most other people will also not be using AI tools, right? So you will have an advantage there, or just to be prepared for the future, because I don't think this stuff will go away, right? It will be there eventually. And I think it is an investment, but it's worth it, right? All right. So what it said here is, okay, what we can do, we can build some dashboards, we can build reporting, we can build spreadsheets, we can do the insights and takeaways, or we can plot a trend. So we'll ask you questions. You can always pick something else, right? I don't know, to make a PowerPoint. I don't want Excel, I want PowerPoint. And what it will do, if there is more questions to ask, we'll keep asking you more things to get more detail. Obviously, this is quite broad, right? So we'll just do whatever it thinks is a useful PowerPoint in this context, which we'll see in a second how it works and what the result will look like. And then as soon as we have a first kind of interim result, that's when we start iterating, right? And so AI, especially very good with getting to a draft stage very fast, because I think that's the hardest. Like if you've ever written an article or a newsletter or anything, I think that the first version, the first draft is the hardest, because you start with nothing, only what's in your head. And as soon as it's on paper, of course, it will be not great usually, right? But that isn't the point. I think the point is to experiment and try. And that's why I think most people aren't properly using AI, because they either don't take the time to try and experiment, or they're not given the time, right? Because they're stuck in their day-to-day operations and just have no time. But unfortunately, the truth is that you will have to make it, or at some point you will just be so far behind that it's going to be very, very hard to catch up. And so I basically last year, so like a year ago, I think I took almost 2 or 3 months where every night I would play around with stuff. And at some point it just becomes second nature. And I think what you develop is a thinking pattern of, or I don't know, thinking pattern is correct, but a methodology where it becomes second nature to just get out of AI what you need to get out of it, because it's very flexible, right? And so you also get a sense of which things are actually easy to do, which tools you can rely on. For example, here with the PowerPoint skill, it's okay, but the slides generally look pretty crappy, right? So I think that isn't necessarily a good use case right now. And that's another thing. These things keep changing, way too fast, even for my taste. And I'm like a founder, I'm like a tech person, even for my taste. There's too much stuff going on, and I think everyone feels like this. But that's just another reason why you have to start doing something now, because it's going to get worse every day, So essentially, you have to keep an eye on which use cases are easy to do, which use cases are reliable, which use cases actually allow for error, right? So there's some use cases where you need 100% accuracy, because otherwise it will have consequences legally or for your business. They just carry a lot of risk, right? And so essentially those things, they're slowly becoming regulated as well, that you can, for example, make insurance decisions fully automated. But it's also a new skill set to understand in a process, where are the checkpoints where we need a human in the loop, where we need to not use AI, we just have to do it completely from scratch, or completely manually, because we just can't afford to make mistakes. And I think there's different levels of what AI can do. It can be a copilot, or it can be the automation that's doing all the work, and then you're just reviewing it. So there's a lot of different layers of what the process in the end will look like, but they all start here. They all start with experimentation, with just using the tool, doing the thing, not reading what some fucker on LinkedIn has to say. No, it's all about understanding it for yourself, because no one can do that work for you. You have to do it yourself, right? And so that's why I think it's very important to just start. And for me, this is the easiest way, right, to get back to the topic of the video, going down the rabbit hole here. But so it's still creating. All right, so it's definitely not doing everything right here. It looks a bit odd. So here you can see what files it has created in the meantime. Yeah. All right, so maybe that wasn't a good idea, but essentially it's having a lot of trouble to turn this into a PowerPoint. I don't know why, but I don't feel like waiting. And I already told you, right, that PowerPoint isn't necessarily like the best thing to do with this.
Here, me and Excel spreadsheets.
But what we're going to do is we're just going to have it create an Excel spreadsheet, and then we'll try to add the other files as well, because this is just one data point or one video, and it's not really that useful, right, to just look at one, because I think in the zip it's just a CSV, which is essentially already an Excel spreadsheet if we just import it. But we'll give it the other ones as well. Let's see. Right, in Cowork, which is a special kind of tool within Claude Desktop, you will have these working folders, and there will be the files that it creates. It actually do something here. Okay, so it did create a PowerPoint. I don't know why it was like shitting the bed, but essentially, yeah, as you can see, they look like shit. You didn't give it your template and it will look a bit better, but ultimately it's not a strong slide creator from my experience. But 3 months ago, Excel didn't really work, and now it works really well. So, but it's only text. I think it's a bit easier. Design is just generally not that good, but text is easier for it to do, which again is like the use cases you get a feeling for, right? Which work and which don't. Right, so here we have the spreadsheet. I don't know if it looks so weird. I've never seen like tabs up here. Maybe that's just how they render it. It's more like it made an HTML website. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Right, and now,
all right. Now, that beast other for videos to it. How we may here go. There it's science. What take from each video. On our video, let's go ahead. Open.
So that was just the first step, right? We're trying to get something going. We see, okay, so what it can do for me, it can give me, I don't know, the KPIs that it has here, key insights, right? But of course, they're not necessarily helpful by themselves or for one video. I mean, yeah, fine. You can have a trend, but the trend for one video is kind of not that helpful. Plus, you can easily see this in the YouTube UI yourself, which means you might as well do it there because it's more, yeah, it's just more useful. You can filter, you can do a bunch of other stuff. I mean, you can do the same here, but you get the idea. It's more helpful for multiple videos at a time. All right, it's done. It took quite a while, but essentially it was telling me which video has the most views, which video has the highest CTR, which has the highest like retention, so people watching it the most. Okay, and then it says, okay, so going forward, we want the thumbnail style from one video with the pacing of the other. So it was much more, it was 5 minutes long. The other one was 20 minutes. So it was more of an in-depth guide. And I think if you made it this far in this video, then you will know that I can sometimes go off the rails and ramble about stuff that I think is interesting, but it's not really, you know, what you expect if you go into YouTube videos. I can understand that it might be annoying and probably something I should cut out, but I don't have an editor. So for now, let's keep it. But yeah, so we wrote a very comprehensive spreadsheet. I don't think it's this one. Where is it? Right. So here it's by video. So just double down on product management, still find the best thumbnail, fix your hooks. 4 to 5 videos have sub 20% retention. Okay, so a lot of things I can improve, very useful takeaways. And this is also a very prime use case for AI because of aggregation and data analysis. It's quite good at this. So it was a good use case to pick. But ultimately, the next step here, if I want to do this more often, let's say I want to make it a weekly habit, or you have picked a process you're doing every week, it makes sense to make this either a system prompt or a skill, which lets you run it multiple times with exactly the same process. So we went in, we started doing something, we said, this is what I do first, this is what I do next, and then that is obviously a repeatable thing, right? And based off of how often you do it, it might make sense to turn it into a skill. And how we can do that is very simple. We can just say, hey,
can you turn this repeatable?
Because we're in the same conversation, everything is in context that the AI needs to know. So it's all within the same conversation, which is the context, right? To make this a repeatable thing so that I can run it and it will give me the same output every time. This is very useful if you have certain deliverables where this is just an interim step to get the deliverable, right? So essentially we can do like here, a spreadsheet, or maybe a document, a report, PowerPoint if it finally fucking works, but not right now. So think of it as passing something off to maybe an intern that will crunch the numbers or write a report, and then you take that back and you iterate based off of that, right? Okay, I want to do it on demand, Excel only. So I already realized that we tried PowerPoint and we tried Excel, but PowerPoint obviously kind of shut the bed, which is why I switched to Excel. So it's also smart enough to understand that. And obviously you can be more specific in the prompt, but this is like, it has become very, very hard with AI, or much harder than in the beginning, to shoot yourself in the foot. So let's say a year ago, you would have to tell it exactly like, okay, this thing, turn it into a skill and only focus on Excel, because otherwise it would have just done something stupid. But now it's like already so far that it will be very, very useful in just being smart about the defaults, right? Which we often assume that, well, yeah, of course it will skip PowerPoint because I interrupted the thing and told it like, okay, fuck it, let's do Excel. But clearly it's often not smart enough to do that, right? But now it is. It used to not be. So what it's doing, it's writing us a skill. It's just a markdown file. It's just essentially a text file with special syntax. If you're a developer, you're very familiar, most likely. But that will have the instructions to run this process that we did just now in a repeatable fashion, right? So essentially, we will just list the steps that we've done, and we will be able to call that up later. I actually have one of the videos I have in here is about creating skill files. So if that's interesting for you, you should check that out in more detail, because I show you also how to analyze it. But for now, we only have context. The file itself, where is it? So it already put it somewhere, but I didn't want to open it there because I wanted to show it to you in the tool itself. But essentially, here is now a repeatable process to take the CSVs. So this is what's part of the zip file, and then build the spreadsheet output that we wanted to have. If we wanted to edit it to say, let's focus on a certain part in output, we could, for example, tell it to ask us questions to take in what's dynamic, but this is a fairly static process, right? So here, all the dynamic input is essentially which zip files we upload. And so this is enough. And now you can essentially go in, open a new chat, a new task, whatever, and tell it to help me analyze my YouTube videos. Here's the 5 zip files. And then it will run that process for you, and you will just skip all the back and forth. It will just all do it by itself, and then ping you when it's done, and has the report here, the Excel report in the working folder. And so this is how you can essentially go from, I don't know how to use AI, to a repeatable process that does some, I don't know, boring work you don't want to do. You know, I can do this myself, right? I can look through through CSVs and write an Excel file and do that. But why would I if I can also have something else do it for me, and it's not something I particularly enjoy, right? So yeah, I think that's the whole idea. And yeah, so this is how you can just get started using AI. Just ask the damn thing what it can do for you, and then just, you know, experiment. It's all trial and error. That's really it. And it's you building up knowledge and understanding of what it's good at and what it's not good at, instead of immediately dismissing it, or basically just, you know, getting a directive handed down to use more AI, and no one the fuck knows what that means. But unfortunately, this happens everywhere. So if this was useful, feel free to subscribe and check out any of my other videos. And if not, then maybe not. All right, cheers.